Next, I would take the opportunity to introduce Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. She is a stout supporter of Fort Leonard Wood in our region. She's a good friend of the area, and we've had a chance actually to visit with her recently. So we'll tell you a little bit about her before we bring her on for her live remarks. Vicky Hartzler proudly represents the good people of Missouri's 4th Congressional District, which is comprised of 24 counties in west central Missouri. Vicky grew up on a farm in Cass County, learning the value of hard work, family values, and a reliance on God. These values have guided her life as she's attended and graduated from Archie High School, the University of Missouri, and the University of Central Missouri. They inspired her as she taught public school for 11 years in Lebanon and Belton, and as she has joined her husband in small business. Vicky began her public service in 1994 when she successfully ran for state representative in the Missouri General Assembly, where she served for 6 years. She was elected to Congress in 2010 and serves on the House Armed Services Committee and Agricultural Committees. She currently serves as ranking member of the Tactical Air and Land Forces Subcommittee on the House Armed Services Committee and is the chairwoman of the House Values Action Team. Vicki, her husband Lowell, and their daughter Tiffany reside on a working farm near Harrisonville in Cass County. It is our pleasure to have Congresswoman Hartzler with us today.
Well, thank you, Dorsey. It's great to be with you. I'm here in Missouri, heading back to DC this Saturday for our new opportunity to vote on or not vote on the issue dealing with postal issues. But I am thrilled that you're going ahead and holding this virtual meeting. I know we've had lots of challenges with this pandemic, and I'm so proud that you're not letting that stop you and moving forward. But I wanted to join Senators Blunt and Hawley in commending you at the Sustainable Ozarks Partnership for all that you're doing there, providing such wonderful support for Fort Leonard Wood. I concur with what Senator Blunt said, that I don't think there's any other organization, community support organization in this country that is any more supportive and effective than you. And I commend everyone who's taking time today to participate in this. I know that the pandemic has been a challenge to our community, and I appreciate the way that the businesses of the area have continued on and stepped forward. I'm pleased that the new leadership is starting to issue some more orders to allow some more involvement of our local businesses there, and know that we're going to get through this stronger than ever, and that the Waynesville and St. Roberts area will continue to be strong. Both senators mentioned the hospital, and that has been something I've been so pleased to support, and was so proud that I could be there at the groundbreaking for that new premier facility. I'm so excited about it. To date, we have already spent $150 million on this project, and as both senators mentioned, we do have currently $40 million that is needed for this next year in the NDAA, and so I look forward to continuing to see this facility come to fruition and it to provide the wonderful health care that our soldiers and their families deserve. This new hospital, I think, demonstrates the Army's commitment as well as the Defense Health Agency's commitment to Fort Leonard Wood and to healthcare and to missions for years to come. And these commitments are extremely important, especially as the Department of Defense is looking to realign the military medical in-strength numbers. And I think this will specifically impact our rural communities, and I'm very concerned about this. The House version of the NDAA does provide a prohibition on changing any of those numbers for another year. That was in last year's NDAA, and then now it has been extended for another year until the DoD does a study and reports to us in Congress on the impacts of doing so. This assessment includes looking at the local healthcare networks and their capacity to provide care for covered beneficiaries and other areas of medical treatments that are available. And as you know, Fort Leonard Wood, we're in a very small, a rural area with sparse TRICARE network and limited access to civilian providers. And so simply referring our military personnel and retirees to a very limited TRICARE network is not feasible for our region. And additionally, it's difficult to recruit the quality healthcare providers to come to a rural area. And so it's very concerning, the Department of Defense initiative to reduce the number of medical personnel. And I think it could be detrimental to our area. So rest assured, I'm going to continue to advocate that Fort Leonard Wood has the medical professionals that they need and make the case for that you can't just shift those people to the local area. It's not going to work. And I'm glad that we got that provision in there. So at least at this point, those cuts are put off, and hopefully we'll be able to get them stopped on a permanent basis. But as I've mentioned, the House has been busy on the National Defense Authorization Act, and it was positive that the NDAA passed out of committee unanimously, and then it passed out of the House with a bipartisan vote of 295 to 125. So it was a very, very strong vote. I believe that this bill is a win for Missouri. It's a win for the country. While I'm not supportive of every provision that's in there, this is typical. That's why we go to a conference, and I'm hopeful that we can get out some provisions that maybe aren't as positive in conference. As the ranking member of Tactical Air and Land Forces Subcommittee, I will be on the conference committee again, like I have every year since I've been in conference. So I'll have a real opportunity to have a major role in shaping that final version. And we'll be fighting for Fort Leonard Wood and all the many, many positive provisions that are included in the House version of the NDAA. Wanted to highlight some of those. We've already mentioned, obviously, the $40 million that goes to our hospital. But overall, the top line is $740.5 billion. This is a slight increase from last year and a pretty significant increase from the year before. As you know, I believe one of the few things we should be doing in Congress is to provide for the national defense. And I have adamantly opposed the cuts to our national defense that were inflicted under the former administration. And we are building our way back up to where we need to be to get our readiness so it's cutting edge and make sure we modernize our forces. And so I'm pleased that we have a top line number of $740.5 billion. That does include a 3% pay raise for our troops. It also includes, as I mentioned, the prohibition on reducing or realigning military, medical, and strength. It includes language directing the Secretary of Defense to include a strategy for the use of chaplains and nonprofit post-traumatic growth organizations for behavioral health care for military service members. This is an initiative that I've been working on for 2 years, trying to find programs that work for our men and women in uniform to truly help them find hope and healing after they suffer from post-traumatic stress. And the good news is there are many nonprofit faith-based organizations that are having fabulous success. I mean, 100% success. And so I want those options to be made available to our soldiers. And I'm excited that we've got this provision in there to make sure that that is looked at as part of the options available to our soldiers. There's also language requiring the DoD to examine the benefits of consolidating military law enforcement training. We would like to see more missions come to Fort Leonard Wood. And we think that this is an opportunity perhaps to consolidate, to bring more missions there. So that is part of our bill, and the DoD is going to have to look at the possibility of consolidating it. I couldn't put in there at Fort Leonard Wood because that would be parochial and that's not allowed. But we know the best place to provide military training in the nation, and it's right here at Fort Leonard Wood. So we'll see what happens there. The NDAA also has additional money for updated land surveying systems, some of which will eventually end up at Fort Leonard Wood. It has provisions addressing the COVID-19 panic to ensure that DoD has the diagnostic equipment, testing capabilities, and personal protective equipment necessary to protect our armed forces. And also it has a provision in there that I sponsored requiring the Department of Defense to study the vulnerabilities of our reliance on Chinese pharmaceuticals from our military and ensure that these critical drugs and the components of them are produced here in the United States. You know, currently we have a huge dependence on China for our medicines, for our antibiotics, for our vaccines. And we do not want to be dependent on China for these things for the general population, but certainly not for our military. And that's why last October, with Representative John Garamendi, a Democrat from California, we filed a bipartisan bill to require the Department of Defense to look at these vulnerabilities and to use the Defense Production Act to stand up American-made medicines here for our military. This has, of course, become a huge issue now that the COVID has hit, and now we're all aware of our dependence on China for not only medicines, but our personal protective equipment. And so a lot of actions have already taken place, including the president passed an executive order just about 2 weeks ago that incorporated part of my bill to do an assessment in the Department of Defense of the vulnerabilities that our military faces and to take steps to rectify that. And to the executive order goes beyond the Department of Defense. It requires every government agency to do everything it can to purchase its medicines from American-made companies as it relates to our pharmaceutical supplies. So I'm encouraged that steps are being taken already to address this crisis. Otherwise, China really could win a war without firing a shot. If you stop and think about it, just by sending tainted vaccines or tainted medicines or medicines that have inert ingredients in them, you name it, you can think of all the scenarios. And we don't want that to happen, and that's why we're taking steps to address that. I also put some other provisions in the NDAA to address other threats from China. You know, there's a real problem in that we can't, last year in the NDAA, I had a provision that prevented the federal government from being able to purchase certain telecommunications equipment, video surveillance equipments, and communication equipment from China. And that was because there at Fort Leonard Wood, we discovered that there was video cameras, there was 5 of them, that were from a Chinese video surveillance company. And the Wall Street Journal somehow found out about that, contacted my office. We contacted Fort Leonard Wood. And as you can imagine, those cameras removed probably by the end of the day. They've since been replaced by American products. But we discovered that this was happening all across our country, not only military installations, but also in different agencies in the federal government. And so that is now being rectified. And there no longer can be any purchases made from the Chinese video surveillance or the communications equipment companies. And they have to be American made. And this is happening all across our country in the government. So those are just some of the things in the NDAA that I thought you might be interested in. But just know how proud I am to represent Fort Leonard Wood. The missions there make such a difference for our national defense. I'm so proud of the soldiers that are trained there, that go all over the world with those skills and abilities and that mission set that they need to keep our nation safe. But it's not just the strategic national security expertise that they provide. Fort Leonard Wood also makes a huge impact economically. And I was pleased to see the latest numbers that the military spent $1.2 billion at Fort Leonard Wood in 2018, and that equates to about $2.1 billion in both direct and indirect economic output in the region, supporting 20,160 Missouri jobs. Most people do not know that, and I try to let people know that as I can because it is so important, and I'm so proud. I mean, these numbers are going to continue to grow as the missions continue to grow, and as some of the senators mentioned, people in this country and at the Pentagon know Fort Leonard Wood. They recognize the importance of the missions and the impact to our national security that our installation provides. And that's one of the reasons that Secretary of Defense Mark Esper came came here recently and visited Fort Leonard Wood. That's why I think Lieutenant General Ronald Place, the director of the Defense Health Agency, as well as Lieutenant General Scott Dingle, the Surgeon General of the U.S. Army, came to our groundbreaking there. And my mission is to try to get even more Pentagon officials there to Fort Leonard Wood so they can get on the ground and see the wonderful missions there. I've just recently sent letters to the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, inviting him. I've also sent a letter to General Michael Garrett of U.S. Forces Command and General John Murray of U.S. Army Futures Command, inviting them. And as I continue to meet with these officials in Washington, I'm going to personally reach out and invite them there, because once they come, once they see, once they get to meet you and the soldiers, and they get to see the wonderful training and that is going on, they go away going, wow, I had no idea. This is amazing, and we need to support this space, and we need to even expand its opportunities for even more training. So rest assured, I'm going to continue to advocate for Fort Leonard Wood. I'm so proud to represent you, so honored to partner with you, and so appreciative of what you do there locally, providing support for our soldiers and their families and for the mission of this very important installation. So thank you for asking me to participate today and allowing me to share a little bit of an update. And I look forward to seeing you in person real soon. So thank you so much, and have a great day. God bless.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Hartzler.